There you go.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today to our live Q&A on Microsoft Teams. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at the Microsoft Teams platform. We've asked you all questions up front for it as well, which you've kindly submitted, which we very much appreciate. There is also a live Q&A section within this window that you have now, which is in the top right-hand side. If you click that, and you can submit your questions. We've already had some submitted, which we appreciate, and which will build into what we're talking about today. And any questions that we don't answer or we can't answer today, we'll follow up with a phone call or an email afterwards. So if you don't mind, when you submit your questions, if you can just put your name and email address, that will be appreciated. But hopefully we'll give you some ideas how it works. Just first of all, my name's Mark Edwards. I'm the Operations Director at Seriun, and I've got Andrew Buckfield, who's our Business Systems Consultant. If you can say hello there.
Hello, everyone.
And he's currently self-isolating in his garage. You can see from the picture. And we're all at home at the moment, as well, as you can imagine. Just a little bit about Microsoft Teams first, and Seriun. For those who know us, we're an IT company in the Northwest. We're a Microsoft partner as well, hence why we talk a lot about the Microsoft applications. And we've been using Teams ourselves for, I've lost count of the number of years, to be honest, probably since about 2008 when it was launched. Teams is quite a mature product, and we've done quite a few of these webinars and discussions around Teams before. And we do say we don't recommend applications that are brand new to the market. But Teams is definitely something which has been around, and we've obviously seen a lot of people being forced to use it over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and that's not a bad thing, to be honest. And I think we are seeing more and more usage of it, and hence why we're doing these kind of webinars for you. It's GDPR compliant, and the data that is held in Teams is held in the same data center as your Office 365. If you signed up for Office 365 in the last 3 or 4 years, that'll be in the UK data center if you're UK based. If you're otherwise, it'll be in the nearest data center to the country you're in. And if you signed up to Office 365 many moons ago, it's probably in Dublin at a guess, and you can ask for it to be moved if you want. Teams was designed as a replacement for a product called Skype for Business. Skype for Business, again, been around for a very long time, really good product for messaging between people inside a business. But Microsoft have slated that to go end of life in July 2021 and are asking people who are on Skype for Business to start moving over to Teams. A question that has just literally come in, which says, I've asked, what are the advantages of Teams compared to Skype for Business? Hopefully what we're going to show you now is the advantages. But fundamentally, as Microsoft are ending its life of Skype, people who are still on that product, and that's Skype for Business, not personal Skype, to be clear. Hopefully, you unfortunately you're being forced off it, but the advantages of Teams in terms of working collaboratively across multiple departments of your business hopefully pay dividends anyway, and we can help people move that over there. Teams is also part of what we call the Office 365 apps family. And we have actually had a question about Planner, which we're going to show you a little bit through this session today. But there is a whole host of applications within Office 365 that we recommend you go and have a look at and have a play. They're all usually free. They'll be in the little 9 dotted icons at the top left of the Office 365 portal, which is www.office.com. Have a look at those, but we as a business are going to be doing future little short 15 half an hour sessions like this on those applications over the next few weeks and months, which we will record, and we have a YouTube channel which will send the details out after. But if you do want any of these, please just ask us and we'll send you a link to the videos. So how do you get Teams? It's quite easy, actually. It's free on all the Office 365 packages apart from the lowest one, which is email only. It's in there already by default, and it will try and install itself on your device as much as possible, to be honest. Microsoft have been quite aggressive over the last few months because of the end of life for Skype for Business. To try and get it in front of you, even putting pop-ups in Outlook saying, do you want to start using Teams? So you probably already have it, and that if you are an Office 365 subscriber. And that's really why we promote it as much, because you're paying for something that you may either just use for a bit of chat or actually not the full functionality, and the benefits in there are absolutely massive. As I said, it's installed as a part of the new Offices by default now, so any new PCs you get with Office, it will come and get installed, and it actually opens up on your machine when you try and start it. The point of this session is to really show you the benefits of it. If for any reason you don't want Teams and you don't want your staff or anyone you work with to use it, we can stop that pop-up when it starts your PC, but hopefully by the end of this you'll see why it's worth it. There's applications for the web, desktop, mobile and tablets. One of its massive advantages is you can have the same experience across all those kind of devices, no matter what. So for example, this morning we were prepping this. I got up, made the kids breakfast like you do, and I was replying to messages on my mobile phone through the Teams app. And one of my colleagues said, "Oh, have you already started work today?" It was just because it looks like you're sat in front of your desk, but you're actually using your mobile phone, your iPad, your Android tablet, or just a website actually, which isn't your PC, to access the same information. And that is a huge benefit to Teams. Just one negative, really, it's an online product. So without any form of internet connection, it doesn't work. So you just need to be aware of that. Obviously these days, and obviously very relevant for the last few weeks, we've all had to test our internet connectivity and prove it works, and disaster recovery practices. So it's not usually the end of the world these days, but you just need to be aware that it does require an internet connection. And very lastly, just unrelated to this webinar, but we are promoting it to people, Microsoft are renaming their products. So they're renaming them from Office 365 to Microsoft 365. I'll be completely honest, Microsoft are really good at trying to confuse people in what they call their products. But you just need to be aware that if you're an Office 365 subscriber, and for example, if you use any of the Business Premium Essentials range, they'll get renamed to Microsoft 365 as Business Basic or Standard. None of the functionality is changing at all, and it is all basically the same, just with different branding. There's another product coming to the range called Microsoft 365 on its own, which has a whole host of different options in there, and Microsoft are positioning the naming around that product basically. So just watch out for that on your invoices and your credit card bills. The reason why it's changed name is a branding exercise, but ultimately the functionality is the same. So what we want to do today is we've been asking you as you register for these sessions what questions you have, and then myself and Andy and other members of the team have been prepping hopefully to show you and give you answers to those. Overridingly, the biggest question we had for this session was how do meetings get arranged? Just some examples of the questions which come up, so you might recognise your question. We've tried to bulk them together in terms of what we think is the same answer, if that makes sense. But fundamentally, we've got a lot of questions of how do you set up a conference? How do you set up a meeting or a live event with external people, and how do you partake in external meetings? When we talk to people about this, the main thing we say is if you're doing a pre-arranged event or meeting, like you would do traditionally in the old school world, you ring up somebody and say, "I'll come and see you at 2 o'clock next Tuesday." Now it's, "Can I come and see you at 2 o'clock, but I'll send you a meeting invite." That's what Teams is hugely powerful for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to show you how you do that within Microsoft Teams and give you a flavour of some of the options.
Hi everyone. So I'll just quickly go through some of the different ways in which you can create meetings within Teams. Obviously, the most in front of you way of doing so is from the calendar directly within Teams. On the bar on the left, you could just select calendar and just go new meeting. And in this case, you could create a meeting and put in any details that you have for that and whoever you wish to invite to it as well. Now, this will allow you to create a meeting just from the Teams interface without coming out of it. And you can as well invite external people. But the main difference is that this will not search through your sort of local users. So you have to put the full name and email, well, full email address in there to invite external attendees. Generally speaking, though, I think you're probably better not to do the creating of your meetings from within Teams. There is a lot of integration built into Outlook for Teams, and you're probably better to just stick with what you know on these side of things. So if you wanted to do it in Outlook, once you've had Teams installed, you may have to restart Outlook for this to show up, but if you've got the Teams desktop client installed, you should get a button on here for join Teams meeting. And actually, I want to do new, that's because I have one selected, new Teams meeting, and you can click that. And what this will do is it will create you a meeting in the normal way that you'd expect to see in Outlook. So you can type in the details of what that meeting is. And this will allow you to search through all the contacts. And this also as well looks at anybody that you've sent emails to previously. And we can just say mail.com. Right. And then you can invite external contacts to it as well. A couple of ways of doing that. You can either do it like that, straight from the calendar with the new Teams meeting. But when you are creating a meeting in the normal manner, if you decide to then change that to a Teams meeting, you get that button, adds all the different bits and pieces in there for making it a Teams meeting, which I'll just go through as well in a moment. I need to remember that. So them's two of the ways of creating it. The other one is through the online version of Outlook. So some people might just be using online Outlook, and to do it from there in your calendar, you can again just go to a new meeting. Come on. And you get a little tick box here for making it a Teams meeting. That's changed recently. So what it used to say there is make this an online meeting, and then you had an option of Skype or Teams. And like Mark said, they're really trying to start moving away from Skype. So that's why this one just says Teams meeting now. So you can do that, and then that will add all of the things in for it to be a Teams meeting. Briefly, just to go through them options as well. When you have these, you may notice that I do have a phone number in here. That's an additional service that you do have to pay for. Mark, how much is that again?
£3.60 per named user. So we've got quite a few companies where a selection of staff use that. So say you've got a sales team and they do a significant amount of conferences. You can enable it just for those people, so not the entire business. And what that allows you to do is people who don't have Teams, or that you will expect your customers to either struggle or have multiple options to connect to your Teams meeting, it gives them a phone number they can dial into, basically, and allows that. But it's just £3.60 for those people, so you don't have to put it on everybody.
Yeah, it's quite handy, really, especially in the current situation. A lot of people have just been sent home with their desktop PCs that they've just carried out underneath their arm, and not all of them come with a headset or a microphone or even a camera. Generally, if you've got a laptop, you're pretty set, but if you took your desktop PC home, you might not have a microphone and headset that you can talk through. So what that allows you to do is you can dial in just on a standard phone, and that means that you'll get the audio from the meeting through the phone, and you'll be able to see the display of what's going on through the web as well. Now, what else is there? All about joining an external.
Yeah, there's a question that's come in actually about so do you from Mark, so do you need to use a desktop Outlook, not a web? Hopefully that answers your question, Mark, that you can do it actually from three sections: the Teams application, the Outlook application, or the website as well.
Yeah, so there's three different places you've got it in Teams, Outlook, and through the web. Yeah, there you go. You have to double click it to get it up there. Okay, is there another one? Yeah, Mark smiled on there, so thank you. Okay, so just in regards to the joining external meetings, if this is exactly how it looks once it gets sent out. So if you invite an external contact, they will get effectively an email with these buttons in there. If you are joining a meeting as an external contact, then you can click that and you get an option to either join with your current Teams if you've already got it, or you can join anonymously, and you can either do that through the web client or through the desktop application. Unfortunately, I can't show you that on here because it is just a demo setup, but it's probably best to just experiment and try and invite your own Hotmail account or something and see what that looks like. But yeah, you don't need Teams to join a Teams meeting. Okay.
No, and it should be mentioned that how you've joined this meeting today, if you've gone through the website and not through Teams, is how your customers or external contacts would join theirs. We're creating we've got a quick PDF that we can email out to explain it to people, but it is a case of just clicking the link. And also, if you are the originating person who made the meeting, to join your own meeting, you can click the link in your own calendar invite, which Andy's showing you. Or you can go into Teams and click the join button as well there.
Yeah. The other, so you get a right click on this one, and that's from Outlook. And in Teams, if you've got it in here, you just get a button on it for join there. Okay, so what was I going to mention then? Oh, sorry, my brain's just gone.
Okay, Andy, don't worry, it's early. I'll just go back to the presentation now. So the next question we had was about sharing your screen. Now that we've hopefully ordered these in a logical manner. The reason why we put this here is obviously when you're in a meeting, you want to share your screen, and it's an obvious thing to do. And there's a whole host of functions you can share within Teams. So what I'll do is I'll just pass back to Andy as well, and he's going to show you how that's done.
Okay, so sharing your screen. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. He says. Just takes a second to come through. And what you can do is, I've not got the red box showing on here quite yet. 1 second, let me just go through. There you go. So it's really easy. So what you can do is to share your screen once you're in a Teams meeting. So let me just join this one. Yeah, that's fine. That's because it's a test environment. So you get a share button here. Now, this share button allows you to share multiple things, including your screen. So once you press that, you get an option of what it is you want to share. You can either share your entire screen, and that's basically whatever is on your monitor. If you've got multiple monitors, you can choose to share, say, your second monitor, which is what I'm doing at the moment, or you share a specific window that you thrown together. So I could just share this Word thing and start typing away, and everyone can see what it is that I've got open at the moment on there. Okay, so I think I answered that one. Just before I go though, the bit that I was going to mention in regards to meetings when my brain decided to stop functioning properly is there are two different kinds of meetings that you have. You can do a meeting, but there's also a thing called a live event. So this, what you're on right now, is a live event and not a meeting. The main difference being is there's a limit to how many people you can have in a meeting. How much was that again, Mark?
250. It's just been increased.
Right. Okay. So you can have up to 250 people in one meeting. What I would say is don't. The other day I was in a meeting with over 70 people, and it was an absolute nightmare because you had a lot of people whose microphones were all on and people joining late, and there was just a lot of noise, and it was really difficult to actually keep that nailed down. Now, the difference with a live event is that it's only the designated speakers that are able to share their content and talk, really, and you have this Q&A process that other people who've attended can do their messaging, and this also as well allows thousands of people to join. Okay, so I think that's back to you now, Mark.
Yeah, we've got a question on that actually, just further in the slide deck, which we'll come to as well.
Okay.
The next set of questions we got were all about external chats. Now, Teams is a brilliant product for talking internally between yourselves, and we're going to show that later, how you do that later on as well, in terms of setting up those chats. But we do get quite a lot of questions in terms of how you invite external people to it. Now, there's, I suppose, a bit of explanation needed here. When you're using Teams for internal chats, you just type person's name and off you go. When other people have Teams, you can invite those into it as well. So if they're a Microsoft Office 365 company, which to be honest, there's quite a few people now who use this, you can invite them as a chat into the Teams. And there's some settings that are required to do that, but that's definitely possible, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, it is. So what I'll do here is I'll just share my screen again and go through that. So by default, well, first of all, there are two different ways of having external access to Teams. You either have a external participant, which you can use for chat, and you also have as well guest access. They're two different things. So when you have an external, that's just someone that could be using either Skype for Business or Teams, and you can just start messaging them directly using the chat function built into Teams. So if you had a new conversation, you can just type in their email address there and start communicating with them directly. Now, by default in Teams, that setting is on so that you can talk to external contacts. But guest access, which the main difference is guests can join a team, externals are people that you chat to. Okay, I'll go through that a bit more later on because we did have some questions about guest access. But so within the admin center, if that isn't working for you, there is a bit in here under organization wide settings, and you can enable external access. Okay, like I said, by default, that is on, which is for allowing people to communicate with externals. Now, in here, there is a section as well about where you can add a specific domain that you want people to be able to talk to. So you might want to do that if you've got a sort of cross-forest business with different brands, and some people have got different email addresses on or whatnot. But you can also block a specific domain as well. So I could say that I just don't want anyone to try and send me messages directly from that company. Okay, and I think that's all I wanted to talk about now.
That's really useful because we get lots of questions on this, and if you want to limit who your staff can talk to, because for example, you might not want them to be talking to friends on it. For example, it's not personal Skype. You can do that. If you want to open it up, you can do that. Just be wary that the company on the other side has to have their settings enabled as well. So you both have to basically turn on sharing by default, which it is. So if they've changed or tinkered with theirs, it just needs checking. Your IT support company can make them changes as well. And just a further note on that, we've had a couple of instances over the last few months where Microsoft have released a known issue with that talking between two companies, but we're expecting that to be resolved, and it's not affecting everyone as it stands. The next set of questions we got, which is very relevant to the moment, is Zoom versus Teams. We had a couple of these questions come in, and we completely understand why you would ask them, to be honest. Zoom has massively blown up over the last few weeks for all the obvious reasons, and makes a big and is obviously a good solution for it. They're both good products. Let's be clear out the door. Teams is an integrated product into Outlook, Word and Excel, and some of the things we'll show you as we go through this, and we'll hopefully explain that why you use it as very much an internal solution. And we use live events for external meetings as well, which are more of a one-way conversation, to be honest. And what you find is that Teams is very good at interacting within the business. And what Teams is trying to do is catch up with a couple of features that Zoom is very good at. So if we look at this slide, for example, when you have more than like 4 or 5 people on a Teams meeting, at the bottom of the screen, you get all their pictures come up here. So it's not the kind of gallery view that you see in Zoom where you have 20, 30, 40 people around, but it shows the picture of who's speaking. What it does do is if you've got more than one person with video turned on, you end up with 4 people on the screen at once, and it will show you the person who's speaking in that screen. So it will basically flip one of the 4 panels to be the ones that you need to do. Again, it works really well in moving those around. There's a feature change coming out in the next month or so, which means there's going to be 9 people on screen instead of 4. And then, so if you have 250, for example, it'll put the 9 people who's making a noise on the screen. And that's a big difference between Teams and Zoom. I think our recommendation on this is that if you're an Office 365 user, for any internal discussions, meetings, conversations, or meetings with your customers, So one-to-ones or one to a few people, Teams is a logical choice because you can easily record the meetings, you can share information around Word, Excel files, your desktops, etc. And we're going to show you in a second how you can customize your background now, which is a feature that Zoom's had for a while, that Teams haven't had, but they rushed out this week as well. So it's catching up in that regard, but it's a more enterprise grade solution. Also, Zoom currently has some hacking issues, should we say, because it's been proven that 500,000 accounts have been put onto the dark web and sold off. And we do find that in a business perspective, you end up with your staff installing Zoom and other applications when they're working from home, and you lose control over what's installed on their device, where Teams is a known quantity more than anything else. So again, it will be something that you choose it on preference. For example, if you're doing a network meeting and you're organising a network meeting, Zoom currently is probably the logical choice. You can have a lot of people there because you can see everybody at once in a gallery view. It's like you're in a room with people and not just seeing who speaks at the time, so you get a bit more interaction. But for anything else, Teams seems the completely logical choice. Is that something you agree with, Andy?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I did want to add to that, though, just because we are doing tips and tricks as well, what you can do as well is when you've got that grid of the 4 different people that are currently talking, there is actually an option as well to pin a specific video chat. And if you hover over the picture, you get like 3 little dots, which if you click on them, you then press pin. And what that does is it basically puts that person's screen on full screen. Now, that can be quite useful if there is, again, a meeting where someone's currently sort of chairing it and trying to share what they've got on a whiteboard behind them or something along them lines. Did you mention as well the feature about it changing to 9?
No, do you want to bring that up, Andy?
Yeah, so there is some features in the pipeline for Teams as well. They're continuously improving it, and the gallery view, which seems quite popular, has obviously made them start to think about doing some more bits on that. So what they are doing is changing it so you can have up to 9 people's images on at one time rather than 4. They've not gone a full gallery yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did that in the future. Okay, so where are we up to on that?
Just some questions that have come in actually, which are worth answering. So Tom's asked a question about can you record sessions and then use them for training, which is actually our next slide.
Yeah.
In the what we've been asked. So we've been asked quite a few questions on that. Fundamentally, Tom, yes, that's exactly what you can do. So this is being recorded automatically as a live event. And what we're doing with live events is we're running live events, but just for ourselves. So we're doing them and having multiple presenters like we have now on the event, and it's recorded. That will then get uploaded to a product called Microsoft Stream, which again is free of charge for Office 365 users. But you actually just get the video recording automatically after the event, and we push it to YouTube because it's a more used product. So yes, you can do that and record those, then distribute them via whatever medium you prefer. In a general meeting, you can just click the record button as well in the 3 dots which pop up, and I've got a slide later on which will show you where it is, to be honest. I'll reference it at that point, but yes, you can. The other question you asked is, will a chat on a mobile not work over 4G, 5G? No, it works absolutely fine as long as you've got a good data connection. So you don't need Wi-Fi to do chats. I know I've been out and about and used Teams to make phone calls before and answer and basically rang those as off my phone using my 4G. As long as you've got a good data connection, it really doesn't matter at all, and you'll be absolutely fine for it. We've got some more questions which will come in, which we'll answer as we go along, if that's okay, depending on our slides, and we'll keep track of them. In terms of what we get asked about training and what Teams can do and can't do, it's a great product for it, to be honest, because ultimately you can create a meeting, as we've just said, as we've just shown you. You can then record the meeting as well, which you can then replay for training purposes. So we've had a few customers say, I can't make it today, but can you send me the recording? Absolutely. And you can do that quite easily as well. It's just 2 clicks, lets you know it's being recorded, and then when you finish you can stop it as well. But Andy, it's worth you probably just having a quick chat about how you deliver training to people on Teams.
Yeah, okay. So what I'll also do as well is just to go over the points that you were saying about the recording meetings and the background images as well. I'll just show you them bits briefly as well. So what you have, so back to my Teams and my screen at the moment. Now, the first thing, Now, at the moment on here, I've joined a meeting and I've got the Snap camera, but no actual webcam. So it's acting sort of like a virtual web camera on here. You can't really see a great deal of what goes on with it, but one of the new features that they've added, instead of just being able to blur your background, they've now changed this so that you get show background effects. And you can choose an image on there to do it. Now, Mark's going to show you some other bits and pieces with that as well. And that's one part of it. The other bit about recording it is basically just get a button there that says record. Okay. So in regards to the training bit, this is just where you were saying about how I'd normally deliver the training, Mark, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So when we're normally doing training for this, what we tend to try and do is, especially for less tech savvy people, is don't get them involved very early on. From our experience, you're generally better to have a core group of people, generally the more tech savvy people in your business or the managers and directors of the business, and set up teams first with the right teams that you want to use, with the right channels. Trial it with that smaller team who are going to be more open to challenges, shall we say. And once it's all set up and you know that it's working for that group of people, then start to introduce it into some of the more technically well, I was going to say, no, I'm not using that, but yeah, the less technically minded people. Okay, yeah. So then that way they'll be able to, yeah, generally speaking, people who are less technically focused don't like to see things changing and would rather have it as a sort of finished product as to what they'd want to use. That's the biggest advice I could give on that one, really.
Just the last point on the training as well, it should be noted that when you hold a Teams meeting in whatever method, and Andy, you might just be able to show this, you can actually turn on what they call a transcribing feature or a caption feature. So it will listen to your voice and convert that into text and put that into the recording as well. So you can use that to export it after and do that, like the videos you see on LinkedIn and stuff like that, where some people put them in there. And Andy's showing that on the screen at the moment as well.
Yeah. Just to add to that. So just to add to that as well, if you forget to do that as well, so this is okay. So if you're in a meeting and it's good for sort of inclusivity, so if you've got some people who are hard of hearing or something along them lines, then they can turn on live captions, and as people are talking, it will put subtitles across the screen as to what people are saying. I don't know if this will be much of an impact for people. This is only true for English and Spanish. Okay, but for most people on the call, I don't think that'll be a problem. So you can turn on live captions, which will use AI to do subtitles. If you forget to do that, and because we have had a few people asking about recording meetings as well, once the meeting has been recorded in Microsoft Stream, you can then do a transcription process after the event so that you can then even just get the chat out of the meeting into a text file.
We've just had a question as well coming about, we talked about confidential information and such, and if you record a video and then put it to YouTube, that obviously, you know, you're questioning confidentiality there. It's absolutely right to ask that question. So that's obviously a business decision where you put those and what you do with those and what you do. In terms of internal training, you can leave the video on Microsoft Stream, and that's an internal YouTube, for want of a better term, that you give access to your staff, and they look at watch the videos like they would do on YouTube, but it's only internal. If you decide to push that out to YouTube or another channel, that's obviously part of your own terms and conditions that you advise when doing these things. What we do with our videos is we put them on our YouTube channel, but it's locked down, so no one can go to it unless we send you a link. So we're trying to get the best of both worlds, where we're using a familiar interface, but also restricting it down to the link that we send out, if that makes sense. And hopefully that answers your question as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, we have actually done a sort of general overview webinar previously of Teams and how to go to the chats and what a team is, what a channel is, and where you use these different things. What I would say is, if you just ask in the Q&A, we can send you a copy of that link. Again, if you specify your email address, then we've got somewhere to send it.
Yeah. Just before we move on, I just want to answer a question quickly that's come in from, you've not put your name, sorry, but you've mentioned about using Teams or Zoom on a remote server, and you don't get sound very easily. We see that quite a lot, to be honest. Our suggestion for that is what you actually do is you run an installation of Teams or Zoom on the local machine outside of the remote server. So if you start your laptop or your PC to connect to the remote server, you normally click the remote desktop icon, to get to that server. Have Teams already installed on it. Run your meeting from outside of the remote server so you can use your video and your microphone. That's the same for Zoom and other applications. And if you need to share your desktop of the remote server to show something you're working on in Word, Excel, you basically just share the remote session. It will give you the option at the bottom. So you basically get the best of both worlds, where you can use the remote server and also use your headset functionality from the desktop. If you want to send in your email address, we'll contact you afterwards and we can just talk about it in detail. So the next set of questions we got was actually about application integration, because one of the huge advantages of Teams over Zoom, to be honest, or any kind of conferencing solution, is fundamentally Teams can integrate into loads of applications. We got asked what we recommend, and we actually thought about this a little bit, Andy, didn't we? And we struggled, to be honest, because it depends on your specific requirements. Do you need a scheduling software, which is our next question, actually? Do you have a certain ERP solution? It depends what you use as a business, to be honest. So what we suggest is you look at what you're doing, what your problems are. So, for example, Andy, if you want to share your screen and just go to Shifts, for example, we use an application within Teams called Microsoft Shifts. Which Andy's just showing is in the little three buttons on the left-hand side. It's a way that we rotor our engineers for on-call usage, but ultimately there's a load of different ones in there. And Andy, if I hand over to you, it's probably just worth you showing the additional apps that you can actually integrate into there.
Yeah, now thanks for throwing Shifts in there, but
okay.
So Shifts hasn't actually been set up on my demo environment, but it's quite easy to do. So what you can do is you can go through in Teams, and Shifts is an option on there, and we do use that internally because we have an early and a late shift, because we do support from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. Is that right? And,
yes, it is. Yes.
And then and we have like out of hours and on call, and who's doing what shift. We have all of that planned in Shifts. But yeah, so I can't really show you too much of that, but basically that's what it's used for. In regards to the other apps and the integrations that are available, there's quite a few different points at which you can integrate into Teams with different products. There's an entire sort of app marketplace built into Teams. You might see in your channels, for example, that you have apps here and other things that you can add, or under a chat you get a similar thing where you can do more apps, and you can also do it when you're in a channel and you have tabs, and I'll just go through the different kinds. So these are all different kinds of extensions that are available into Teams. The sort of catch-all for all of these is really this button down here which says apps. And if you click on that, you can see all of the different products that are available that have integrations into Teams. So here, like Zoom is one that's on there as well. So these are all a case really of other things that you use. So Microsoft don't develop the majority of these. They do for like the 365 and the Power Apps ones, but the people who actually write these are more the product that is being integrated into Teams. So this is why we can't really do too much in regards to recommending these, because it's all about having that other product that you then want to integrate, and you'd really want to speak to the application vendor of them products that you have and see if there is an integration piece and what that actually does within Teams. There are quite a few Microsoft ones built into this as well, like you can integrate Power BI so you can stick reports into Teams, which is okay. I quite like that. The OneNote integration that's in there is pretty good. We use that quite a bit. But yeah, in regards to a lot of the other ones like MailChimp, it depends what you have. And I would say that have a look, see if there is one. If there is, reach out to the application vendor and have a word with them, just see if they've got some documentation as to what that is, how to set it up, and also as well if there's a cost, because some of these there is a cost to. Okay.
Yeah. We're getting quite a lot of questions on the chat, which is really good, and appreciate that. So we're also conscious of time as well, so we'll try and answer as many as possible. We might run another one of these, to be honest, at this rate. So we got a question about can Teams integrate? Can it replace a traditional phone system? Actually, a new feature that came out just about 3 months ago. It actually can, to be honest, but the definition of traditional is the question. It's an additional charge, and that charge is quite expensive, usually outweighs the cost of any phone system on the market at the moment. And its feature set is quite limited as well. It makes internal outgoing phone calls quite easily, does hunt groups and does things like that. So you just got to be aware of that as well. What we usually find is most businesses, and we've had a question about, is there any functionality to integrate calls with FreeCX, i.e. using conference numbers when creating the meeting? There is some functionality around that, actually, a little bit limited at the moment. The FreeCX functionality for integration allows you to do busy or available notifications within Teams. So if you're on the phone, it will update Teams to say you're busy, so people don't pester you, and you get a directory from your Office 365 into FreeCX. There is more integration coming, we've been told, on FreeCX. So going back to the original question of can Teams replace a phone system? Yes, it can, but it all depends on the functionality you're after. What we recommend to customers is use best of breed. FreeCX, for example, the phone system that we supply, is a brilliant phone system, loads of functionality, loads of features that are useful. Teams is an unbelievably good conference system as well. So we say to people, use the right product for what you're after. I know it's tempting to have one product to do all, but sometimes you lose functionality because of that thing. So it's about minimizing the number of products you have, but getting the best out of each one. What we'll do is Darren will follow up on the FreeCX integration afterwards with you as well, because I know you use that system. And we'll also, the person who asked this question will follow up as well, because there is some options there, but it comes down to a cost against functionality. The next set of questions we have are general questions where we, the ones we've done before is where more than one person asks the question, basically. These questions are ones which have come in, which we might rattle through a little bit because of time, but we will, again, if you feel that we've not answered your question, we will follow up every person who's submitted one to answer them in more detail. What is the best uses for Teams? I'll be honest, I'm hope we've already answered that in a lot of guises, to be fair. Andy, you find one thing more than anything else, don't you, to be honest?
Yeah, my general idea with the best use for Teams is to try and stop noise. So personally, I love Teams. Before everyone in the business started using Teams, you used to get tons and tons of all company emails and all these all staff ones and people emailing to groups, and a lot of it was just things where it's just a bit of information, read it, and then you've got to then archive it off. Using Teams, and you can use announcements in Teams again. For a look at the other video that we've done, that's really good at stopping all of the spam in your mailbox. Conscious of time, so we'll move on from that one.
We've been asked a question beforehand, and actually a couple of questions on the chat to begin with, about can I use various aspects of Teams to set up a classroom? And what we're showing you is the business version of Teams. There's actually a Teams for education, which I can't. We won't profess to be full experts on. I'll be honest.
Yeah, and now just to go through some of the bits on there. I have had a look at a few of the different bits and pieces with the Teams for education. We generally are in the SMB business, so we don't really do that much in the education sector. There are some links on the screen which I'm hoping have been on there long enough that you can get scribbled down, and they are sort of Microsoft resources for the Teams education product. And there's quite a bit of different functionality available in there as well. So there are things in there about being able to invite guardians and parents into a team, and you get more control over the chats that are going on between students. And there's also quite a bit in there as well about assigning work pieces out and homework and things like that as well. But if you go to these two websites, the YouTube video section is really good, and the docs one is better if you'd rather read something than watch a video. Okay.
Yeah. We've had a few questions about previous videos that we've done in our sessions. What we'll do is, for everyone who's on this, who's registered for this webinar, we'll send all the links out that we've done for the previous 3 sessions we have. and pass those on as well. We've just been asked a question about what is 3CX, because I've just talked about it a little bit. It's a hosted phone system. So if you have a phone system which is nailed to your wall in your office, it can replace that. It's based on a price of per month per user, basically, and it has a whole host of functionality that is brilliant in these times. For example, we've all took our laptops on with 3CX on and trade as a business normally. So that's not a problem. We can talk about that separately, and I've just asked some further questions on the chat for you. How do you do branding to do meeting invites? Really good point. So it was Jake who mentioned this to us in the questions, and it's something that we don't really talk about. So we appreciate you asking and pointing that out. When you send the invites, as Andy's just told you, Sean, you get this join Microsoft Teams meeting, and it looks like this. Within the admin center, though, you can customize that and add certain functionality in that you might find useful. So your own logo, a legal URL, a help one, so a link to how people can log into it and work, and a footer as well that you can change to yourself. So if you want to customize that, you can do that from the admin side, and we can show you how that we can do that for you if you're with your IT support company, obviously, or ask your IT support company how you do that, because they just go into there and change it. But what that'll do then is change how the invite goes to people to be more branded around your business as well, if that's okay.
Is it worth me just quickly sharing my screen, showing where that is and how to get to that?
Yeah.
Right, okay, 2 seconds. Let me bring that up, and there we go. So I did pop into here briefly earlier, and I'll just mention where this is again. So the Teams Admin Center, you can get to that by going to admin.teams.microsoft.com. And this is where the settings are, where you can change that. So once you're in there under meetings and then meeting settings, then you have this bit on here for email invitation, and this is where you can customize what that looks like. Okay.
So I'll just go back to the presentation. So we've had quite a few questions coming through, which is brilliant as well. There was a question about how do you prohibit participants recording the meeting? Sorry, I couldn't get that out then. Usually it's the person who originates the meeting who records it, to be honest, and not the participant going there. Andy, I'm not sure of the answer to this actually. Can a participant record their side of the meeting?
Well, I'd have to have a look through the settings on it, to be fair. What I would say though is, generally speaking, there's nothing stopping them from recording their screen using any kind of screen capture software. So you, in some way, shape or form, you can't really stop that. If you're sharing something over some sort of video conferencing, someone can record that in some way, shape or form.
We'll look into that for you and come back to you 100%. The next question was, how do I create a team and include external contacts? Which Andy's going to show you how to do that and show you how that's possible to do.
Yeah, so I did mention previously that there's 2 different kinds of external interactions that you can do. So there are external contacts, which is how that question's phrased, but really in the Teams lingo for it, external contacts are other people who have Teams and Skype where you're just messaging them, and they're sort of chat contacts. In regards to adding them to a team, I can actually show it you from here really. So under the org settings in guest access, so the difference between external contacts and guests can be members of a team. Now, for some of the more technical people out there, what that's doing is it's looking at your Azure Active Directory, and it is doing a external contact, well, an external logon to your 365. So this allows them to be members of the 365 group, and they can also be a member of the team, and you can then do everything that you would do in Teams where they'd just be a member. They get a link once they're invited to it with a way to set it up and log into it. Okay.
Yeah, there was a question actually that came in which related to that in terms of Sadie using Outlook for Mac to access certain things. It must be noted that if you're using a Mac over a Windows PC, Teams integrates better with Windows devices. They do integrate quite well with Macs, but they still do look after their own a little bit more.
there is the buttons that they're looking for do still exist in Mac.
Okay.
There is actually the full integration from the calendar in the Mac version of Outlook. It's just the buttons are in a different place. We do have well, we've got a couple of people now using Macs at our office, haven't we?
Yeah.
So what I can do is, if that question's on here, what I can do is
It is.
ask them to screenshot whereabouts that button is, and then that way you can get to it. So we'll reply to that outside of this. I think it's probably the best option.
Yeah. So the next question we had, which came in, was what's the best way to download and keep large folders of high-res pictures that team can access? Within a chat, you can have files, and you put them files within that chat, and then you just download them from there. To be honest, we don't recommend you move loads and loads of high-res pictures between any system, to be honest, because fundamentally that uses a lot of data on the internet and will slow down connections from the end user's PCs. So what we suggest on that is you put them into the file section in the chat, which is the top of there, and view them within that panel. What we'll do is we'll follow up that question, because that's usually intrinsic of something that's happening in your business, that how you manage and move them files around, and Microsoft do have some other options for that outside of the Teams arena.
Yeah. Is it with me just mentioning there the solution that we said before for it, or?
Yeah, go on, Andy.
Yeah. So really super quickly, in regards to this with large image repositories, what we've done previously for somebody is there's a lot of integration really behind the scenes with Teams and SharePoint. Teams is almost like a layer on top of SharePoint, where you have the teams that are set up, and there's a Teams site that's behind the scenes of it all. And what you can do is similar to in Explorer, you can just say view this folder as pictures, and then you see all the thumbnail images for it. In SharePoint, not in Teams, you can set a document library to be a picture library, which will then show in SharePoint that similar sort of thumbnail image layout, which is probably a better way of doing it. And again, if you network IT supports with us, come to us and we can help setting that up. If not, then speak to whoever does it for you.
Yeah. The next question we had was what are the dangers of sharing the wrong group and channel? Just a very quick answer on this, to be honest. You can delete messages on there. So if you shared something in the wrong channel, you just right click it, click the three options, then click delete. And we actually delete messages in the admin side of it using some scripting if need be. But in all honesty, it carries the same risks that you would do in terms of WhatsApp, Facebook, or any other application. Please try not to do it, is the best answer to that. What's better for using Q&As, webinars, or live events? So you're on a live event now, and obviously as somebody who's participating in this, you'll get a firm idea if you think it's good or not, to be honest. Please let us know after the event, I must stress. The live event is a one-way discussion where you can run it in terms of a script like we are now. A main Teams event is something that you have everyone involved in. And as Andy said earlier in the presentation, he was on with one with 80 people before, and it was a bit of a free-for-all. You can mute all participants, but they can unmute themselves. Choose the one based on what you feel is best, and now you've experienced a live event. If you feel that's best for your participants, then we would suggest doing that, and we can show you how to do these events as well, and we might do a further event about these events if that makes sense. Yeah. Someone's asked, how does somebody join a team? Someone on Teams join a Skype for business meeting? They actually don't. So if somebody sends you a Skype for business meeting request, in that request, there'll be a join Skype meeting. You can click that. It'll take you to a website and it'll say, do you want to run the Skype client or do you want to run the Skype for web client? You would traditionally, in that case, just use the web version so you don't install some on your machine, and then join that Skype business meeting using the website. It gives all the same functionality. You can share your desktop, you can share your what you're showing, even if you're not the person who organised it. The only downside is that in Skype compared to Teams, the person who arranged the meeting has to nominate you as a presenter to allow you then to share information. Usually people who use Skype, businesses who've been on Skype for a while, not moved on to Teams yet, and will have to move on anyway by next year. But that is how you join a Skype meeting compared to a Teams meeting. It's just through the website and the link that comes through. How do I set up a group chat? So Andy's going to show you this very quickly because it's really easy to do, and a group chat is having more than one participant in it.
Yeah, okay, so 2 seconds, let me just switch you over. Okay, so we use group chats quite a lot. they're very handy for if you've got a temporary group of people. So we created a group chat for setting up this meeting, and all you have to do really is just start a group with somebody. So I'll say that we've got a chat here with Lee. I can add an additional person to this. So I think I've got an Alan. There you go. And I can also add somebody else. So there's another person with an A. Well, there we go. So I'll add Alan and Alex to this. And what happens here is, oh, I've already used this as an example before. Right, let's just show you that with a different person as well. Oh, that's a rubbish example. Okay, so what you get is basically, normally once you're in a chat, you get a section up there of just the names of the people that are in this chat, but you can then name that chat as to what you want that to be. There's a little pencil that shows up, but that only shows once you've started having a conversation with these people. So you just create a conversation, add multiple people to it, say your first message, and then you can name that chat. And that becomes a group chat, similar in a way to your sort of WhatsApp group chats. And when that's done as well, something that is quite handy for it is if that's something that you're currently working with, you can then pin that chat. And then that pin allows you to see that right at the top of your list. So whatever you're currently working on, pretty good really for it.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. The next question we had was, how do we see chats alongside Outlook? In all honesty, it's a great question. I've not got a particularly good answer for you because currently you can't do it, but it is on the feature release list for it, because I would love that as well, that when you're in Outlook, you can see chats. You can move chats into Outlook, but all that does is convert it to an email, to be honest. So unfortunately, you can't do that at this point, but it is coming down the line, and Microsoft are very good at releasing updates, because we just had a question which was in there about, I don't see the button that Andy sees in his Outlook about creating a Teams meeting within Outlook. That'll be because your Outlook's probably out of date, and it's worth updating it by whatever means you do, whatever means you have to do that. If you're one of our customers, we can help you. If you just buy it direct, you just go and update it through the website, basically. But that's how that would work. Can you share your calendar with team members from your team? That's actually not a question around Teams, to be honest. So what you can do, but that's done within Outlook. We'll respond to the person directly about that. But basically, in Outlook, you go to the button at the top on the ribbon, which says Share Your Calendar, and you choose the people you want to share it with, and that will then go into their Outlook as well. It's not specifically a Teams question.
Yeah. Sorry, just to add on to that, there is actually with Teams being an ever-evolving product, there's a website specifically for feature requests, and I have actually seen that one on there before about allowing visibility of different calendars. It's in the we're thinking about it pile, but if you wanted to have a look or wanted to suggest new features or what might be coming up, it's microsoftteams.uservoice.com is where you'd want to look for.
Just a question that came through on the chat is, there's a known constraint on Zoom where it only runs 40 minutes. If you don't have a business account, there's no constraint on Teams meetings. On a live event, there's a 4-hour limit for these events that we're doing now. Again, just conscious of time, because we said we'd keep you to 10:30, which we're going to overrun. We'll continue with what we're doing, but the recording will be available afterwards for stuff we show you, because we've got loads of a dozen or so tips and tricks at the end of this we want to show you, which might improve your user experience within Teams. The question that came in was trying to roll out Teams alongside Planner. How do I set this up on my team? So Planner is one of the free applications that comes within Office 365 that's really useful. It replaces Basecamp and Trello as a basic project management system. It's not Microsoft Project, to be clear, but it is a good solution. Andy's just going to very quickly show you how you integrate Planner into Teams. But again, we will follow up this question directly with a person as well.
Hi, right, so yeah, now there is some built-in integration to it because it's all part of the 365 suite and Planner's part of the 365 suite. And generally speaking, it's just under this set of dots there, and you can bring up Planner on there. It's also possible as well to pin that you may notice when I went into shifts before, that disappeared. So if you are using Planner quite a lot, you might want to pin that app on there so you can get to it. This here does show you all of the tasks that you've been assigned, and it's basically the same interface as what you get through the web interface to Planner. And it's more of a sort of view only thing. Sorry, 1 second. That's a stupid thing. Got my display in the way. See if I can move that. And you have, there you go, come on. Sorry, it won't be a second. Just screens have decided to pop up on top of each other and it's impossible to get to the thing that I'm trying to. Oh, don't tell me I just closed all of that. And I did. Okay, so yeah, it's the web client of Planner, but the access to it is view only really in Teams. It's not a brilliant integration for it. I think a lot of people think that because you've got Teams in Planner that you'd be able to like have a team per thing that's in Planner. It's not really integrated in that way.
Yeah, it's we'll follow up directly, but it is worthy. Planner's a good product, to be fair, for basic project management, and Teams integrates into it in some dimensions. A question that's been asked on the chat, but we get asked a lot, is can you create a personalized background? Something that Zoom does heavily, and Teams rolled out a really quick update for it last week, so you can do that. So that's possible now. The way you do it is when you're in a meeting, you click the three little buttons here, and then you get show background effects. And in there, you'll get a pop-up on the right-hand side with about 12 predefined backgrounds that are on there. Some bubbles, some office stuff, the beach, the usual funny ones in there. But actually, people want to put their own customized background on with branding and such, which makes sense. That feature is coming in May to make it easy, but it does work now. All you need to do is copy that background into that link, and again, it'll be on the recording on your PC, and then that background that you've put in as a customized background will then be an option for you within that button I've just showed you. So you can basically change your background to suit what you want it to be. The rules of engagement for this is it should be round about a meg in size, so not huge. And obviously it's in 6:9 in terms of your camera size, and it can shrink down. So we've done some testing on this. If you're going to put logos on it and such, don't put it in the far top left-hand corner, and because Teams augments your screen from portrait to landscape as you go along, and you'll lose the logos on the right or left-hand side. So put the background behind you as a person, if that makes sense. Ironically, we were going to show you that, but the way we're doing it in a live event, the way we connected Andy in there, it blocks him from doing that. If you set it, yeah, so far it's a feature, but you can do it as a presenter without a problem. That's the questions which came in, and hopefully we've answered the questions on the chat as well, but we will follow them all up. The last thing we wanted to do was Andy's going to show you some tips and tricks within Teams that we've not talked about. So apologies for overrunning, but hopefully this is useful for you. What we're going to show you is making teams, adding tabs, content management, chats, sharing files, muting channels, which is really useful, to be honest, in a strange kind of way, quiet hours, save messages, and some other options. So Andy, if you don't mind sharing your screen and running through those, that'll be great.
Yeah, okay. So let me just bring up the list so I can make sure I get through all of that. One or two of these I can't really show too much, like the mobile one, but I'll go through the ones I can. So just quickly about creating teams. We have been asked quite a bit before about creating new teams, and literally all you have to do is just press this button down here. Now there is settings in that admin section where you can define whether everybody can make it or if it's just a set group of people, but generally you can just do join or create, and you can do create a team. You have a choice of using an existing group of people from your 365 or just to create one from scratch. When you're in there as well, there are 3 different types where it can be private, which means it won't show in this join a team. and you have to invite people to be in that. So if you've got like a disciplinary team or something like that, then you might want to set that as a private one. And you have a public one. So if you wanted to have, say, for example, a social club kind of team, you could create that as public. And if anyone wanted to join it, they could do, and they can find it and jump in if they wanted to. And then an organization-wide team is something that everybody is in who's in your 365 tenant. That's quite good for, we use it internally. We have like a sort of Seriun team, and we use that team for all of our announcements. And then we have different channels within there as the types of announcements that we might do. So if we've got sort of general business ones, but we also do some stuff about like corporate social responsibility and charity and wellness and mental health things, where we have different channels where we post different announcements for them kind of categorized things. Okay, so also as well, quickly moving on to tabs. So within a channel, you have different tabs that you can add to it. Not a lot of people use this, but it can be quite handy. When you press that plus, I did show this briefly with apps, but the ones at the top here are ones that come with Teams and part of your 365 tenancy. So if you're using SharePoint already, you can put a shortcut in a channel to an existing document library or SharePoint site. It's also really handy to use Excel on these. So I've got an example on here of an Excel tab, which I've added previously. And that actually puts the workbook directly in there. So if you've got some reports that you want to put for retail, then this is just an Excel spreadsheet that you can open live, and it's just visible directly from within Teams. And even from in this tab method, you can still live amend it, and that is edited in that Excel document straight away within Teams. So it's quite handy really with them. Contact management, I wanted to show people briefly, because these are the sort of tips and tricks that people don't always know about. So under the chat, I showed you about pinning chats, but also as well, there is this contact button that not a lot of people see. So if you do deal with a lot of external people, you do have the ability to add contacts into here. So if you wanted to add Dave at Hotmail as a contact, or whoever it may be, then you can add them as contact, and they should show up in here. And he's being created in his own little group. Oh no, sorry, I made a group rather than actually a contact. So that's contact group. So I wanted to do, come on. Yeah, but you can do it. It's in here, and generally speaking, if you start a chat with somebody, then you can do it from there as well. And then once you've got it, you can then create groups of individuals. Here you go, add contact to this group, and then you could do dave@hotmail.com. And it doesn't actually exist because we're not in the group, but you can do. So there's quite a bit in there about contact management. So if you're dealing with externals, bearing in mind this is a test system, so it's not necessarily got all the external things set up correctly, but you can add contact groups, and then you can add contacts to them groups of internal or external people. I have groups, for example, where I've got it set up with all the tech guys. So if I want to find one of the engineers, I've got their names to hand, and ones with the directors and the admin and marketing teams as well. What else we got on here? Pinned and recent chats. So again, in the chat, I did show you briefly about pinning a chat, but if there's someone that you speak to quite often, then you can do that with a pin, and you can also add someone to favorites if it's an individual, which shows up in here. Okay, so sharing
I find that unbelievably useful. You know, we have 4 or 5 group chats that we use in the business, and they're all pinned to the top of my Teams, so that I can quickly see them basically. And when you get onto muting, that just comes into its own.
Yeah. So just moving through some of these. So you've got that pinned and recent chats. Yeah, there is also as well about muting chats, which Mark just mentioned. When you have some of these like chats that there's a lot of noise going on in them, which does end up happening, and it's just like people just chatting nonsense a lot of the time, then what you can do is mute that chat, which yeah, I've got it on here. Yeah, you have an option on here for mute usually. Don't know why that's not showing, but you can mute an individual chat. There you go. It looks like I've already done it for this one. So you can mute an individual chat to prevent people from sending you notifications and it being noisy for you. Sharing files has been mentioned as well. So there's quite a few bits about sharing files. You can share them to a chat, either from a OneDrive or from your computer, and you can do that in chats, but also as well within the channels, you have files that are related to this. Now, these files that are in here are actually in a SharePoint team site, SharePoint library. So it's all on the cloud and accessible and shareable. So it's quite handy for sharing files. Somebody earlier asked about what the benefits of Teams are over Skype for Business. The sharing files is brilliant. We use it all the time. We have a chat which has a load of files shared, like I said previously, for setting this up, where we have this PowerPoint that's stored in the chat with the list of files that are on there. And also we have loads of sort of help documentation for our engineers and demo documents and all sorts in our Teams for Microsoft Business applications and the like. So all of that is directly accessible in Teams. So no matter where we are, we've got access to it. And brilliant in this sort of situation where everyone's working from home. So we've got the muting chats. Now there's a bit on there as well I mentioned about quiet hours and days. Now if you do have the mobile app, which like Mark said before, I've got it. We have people working 7 till 7. I'm not working 7 till 7 every day. So what I have set up on mine is there's a way of on the mobile app in the settings on mobile. So once you're in there on the top right corner, there's a cog that you can press and you can go to quiet days and times, quiet times and days. It's one way or the other. And you can say that you only want to receive alerts and notifications between 9 and 5, for example. And also that you might not necessarily want them unless it's Monday to Friday as well. There's an option on there as well about important messages. So there's a way of flagging an important message. So you can choose to still receive notifications for important messages as well. Okay. Some of the other email integration bits that are on here that I find quite useful, again, related to the bit about people who aren't very savvy with Teams, you can do quite a bit of email and Teams joins as well. Every channel that you've got has an option of allowing you to create an email address for that channel. So if you've had, for example, an email from one of your suppliers with a price list, and you want to really quickly share that price list with your other salespeople, you don't have to download a copy of that email, put it onto your computer, log into Teams, drag and drop it into an appropriate folder. You can just send an email to your sales team, and on this email address for that channel, it will upload a message with a copy of that email, take the attachments and put them into the channels files.
I think, Andy, where that really comes into its own, because we use this functionality, is if you've got an ERP solution, a line of business application, or something that automatically emails out stuff like reports or alerts or anything like that, instead of it going into an Outlook and then going to 20 different people's inboxes in Outlooks who probably ignore it, you can send it straight to a channel within Teams. You can mute that channel like we've shown you so you don't get pestered all the time on it. But fundamentally, you can post that information in Teams directly from another solution. So in your sales team, you could have your sales reports at the end of the month just go straight into the team, for example.
So yeah, that's a really good example of it. We do use that, for example, for our monitoring software that monitors different people's servers. If we spot, for example, that someone's hard drive has got like less than 2 gigabytes of space or whatnot on there, we have a notification that comes through, and then we have a priority alert. Someone needs to look at it, so it's alerting us in every way, shape, or form to try and get someone to have a look at that as quick as possible. Something else I just want to show very quickly on here about email and Teams is if you've got something that is in Teams that you actually want to share with someone, for example, externally, or someone that isn't using Teams because you've just not been able to talk them into it, then you do have an option on a message under these ellipses to share to Outlook. That's a button not very many people know exists, but if you do press that, what that does is it takes that post in Teams. I'm not going too much through today about the phrasing of posts and channels, but each message with its replies is a post, and then it allows you to send that post to whomever it is that you wish. as a email with the body of all of that in it, just to make sure everyone's kept in a loop with it. And I think that's all of it, isn't it?
Just very lastly, Andy, just show one last point. Somebody's asked, Debbie's asked, just show how to save messages, because you can search for messages, but you can save them so you can quickly reference them in the future.
Yeah, so that is on the list, and I just sort of glazed over with that one. So what you can do as well is on the ellipsis, again, on a specific post, you have an option to save this message. That's quite handy. So if you're going through and there is something that you need to deal with at a later date, all well and good. It's not the easiest thing to find where these go once you've done it. So what you can do is once you've got your saved messages, to get to them, you see how it comes up here and it says saved. You click on your face, or in most people's cases, it'll be their initials, and you can go to saved messages here. And when you press that, that shows all of the messages that you've saved before. So I like to think of this as sort of like flagging an email. So if there is a message that you've got to do something with afterwards, you can save that message, and then once you've done what it is, you can unsave it, and then you can just move on with your life. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for that quick run round, Andy. We apologise very much for overrunning. We obviously underestimated the number of questions we were going to get in the chat, and because we did run through this and time it beforehand. But obviously it's a very important topic for people and relevant for it. What we'll do is we'll contact everyone who submitted a question either via the chat or beforehand. Just make sure that we answered your questions correctly. We'll send the links out for all the videos that we've done to this up to this date.
I've got one I want to jump in on. Sorry, one of my favourite things with Teams. Someone's asking about dark mode. Now, I'm a big fan of dark mode for everything. If anything can be in dark mode, I have it in dark mode. Okay, so you can do that. It's I think it's under your settings. Let's just bring it up quickly. I don't think I'm showing my screen at the moment, so let me just bring that up very, very quickly. Okay, so again, under your face, there you go. So under your settings on here, you have an option at the top for default dark or high contrast. So you've got dark mode available on there, and once that's selected, you get dark mode. Okay, so that's just to answer that one really briefly.
To be honest, I didn't know that existed, so that's brilliant. I'll use that.
Dark mode.
No.
Yeah, it's excellent. There's also dark mode as well on the mobile. You know, everyone should be doing it. Save the trees. You know, having a dark mode for everything is using a lot less electricity. Get everyone on dark mode.
And there's Andy's soapbox. Again, what should be noted is that Microsoft update Teams and all the other applications on a very regular basis, and we'll do more of these sessions for, going forward, and get them all recorded and send links out to people who want them. Hopefully we've answered all your questions. I apologise if we've rushed through some points in timings, and also apologise for keeping you longer than we expected. But thank you for coming, and have a really good day. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.